So you've been at the United Nations for almost a decade now. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about just the trajectory of women's rights and the progress that has been made over the course of your tenure. What's been most startling? What are the takeaways that we can be optimistic about?
It used to be that gender equality was a woman's business, but we used this last decade especially to push it to be everyone's business, to be the media's business, to be men and boys' business, to be sports persons' business, to be private sector's business. We've not reached the peak that we would like to reach, but it's now difficult for anyone who represents something to not care. And we are hoping that we can turn that into actions on their part. We now need scale, and we need bolder actions.
Globalization has driven extraordinary wealth. There's been this rise of a global middle class. Are women keeping up with that trajectory? Are we? Where are the places where we can say, globalization is truly giving women the kind of opportunities that we should be proud of?
The improvement of the economic status of women is probably driven more by their own education, because women have been increasingly graduating on top of their class and in many countries doing better than boys. The macroeconomic policies of most countries are not gender responsive. One area that is of concern for us, for instance, is just equal pay. The fact that you still have predominantly women who are not pay the same amount of money for work of equal value. The positioning of women in the private sector in particular doesn't put women in the commanding heights of economies. And of course, there's still a high level of segregation where women are positioned in the softer side of business, even when they have the skills to be in the part of the business that makes the money.
When you came first to the United Nations, when you come here from South Africa and you see on the one hand an enormous amount of news attention and headlines to gender issues driven most importantly by #MeToo campaign over the last few years and still with an enormous amount of energy, how does it strike you? I mean, do you see the Americans focusing on the right issues in terms of gender?
Well, harassment of women at the workplace is a significant issue. So they were spot on in making that a big issue. When we were in Beijing 25 years ago, when Hillary Clinton said women's rights are human rights and human rights are women's rights, he was stating the obvious. But this was not obvious to everybody. People used to treat women's issues as just development issues, not rights. Many countries did not have, for instance, legislation that criminalizes violence against women, especially domestic violence. And the denial of opportunities to women was not seen as a violation of human rights. That statement was reminding everybody that this is the case. And in the last 20 years, we have seen the women's movement making that case over and over again.